All right, guys. Hope everybody's having a good evening. So I want to just take a few minutes in this video, kind of, aiming this at people who are interested in, starting metal detecting, or maybe folks that are wanting to get more serious with it and not just go out once a month or something. But guys who are wanting to get a little more serious in the hobby, there's quite a bit of content clearly on YouTube to get you the information that you may or may not be looking for. Um, but I want to talk about it from a perspective as just starting out. I think that could help some people. There's a lot of options out there for metal detectors, and not everything is created equal, and it can probably be tough for some of these folks to get their head around what they want to start with, and they may need to be able to grow in the hobby, like I did. That was my experience. So I started metal detecting in 2011 or 2013, somewhere right in there. And at the time I was big in forums online. There was YouTube content with metal detecting back then. Some of those guys are still making content to this day. But I was on the forums. There was about 3 different forums I was going to, trying to just get good solid information and learn, make an educated decision on my first metal detector. Well, and this is going to kind of tie into a point that I'm going to make here in a little bit. At the time, I was hunting farms in the Midwest, mostly disked fields, bean fields, and corn fields, where old home sites would be. So I would go out and locate these home sites by finding pottery and bricks and glass on the surface. And then I would take a metal detector in there and see what we could find. A lot of those sites dated from the 1820s to the 1870s, 1880s. And loaded iron sights. So when I began the hobby, I just started out hunting challenging sights without even realizing exactly the challenges I was up against. So after months spent on forums, I decided to buy a Tesoro Vaquero. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it was one of the later model Tesoro detectors that was analog, and I think they were a 14 kilohertz machine. And I wanted something simple that, and it got high praise for being deep and having good iron separation for non-ferrous targets, and all this myriad of things. Well, my experience was digging loads of iron. And yeah, some of it was relics. Some of it was what you would call keeper iron. Axe heads, knife blades, tooling, a lot of agricultural stuff, horse tack, the usual culprits for hunting an old farm home site. And that was my primary metal detector for about 5 years. We had sites on my family's property that were these old home sites, and I would go out and find little eagle buttons and a few coins here or there, and I would fill, and I'm not exaggerating, I would fill buckets with iron on those days when I was out hunting. And I'm lucky I stuck with the hobby, because eventually it got to the point where it was frustrating, right? And I do remember one situation in particular. I had just gone on a new home site that was scattered by a dozer, and it had got all growed up in the wood. So the cellar hole was all pushed in, and the house was built in the 1850s. And I remember my wife at the time, we had a young child, my first son, and she was up there at her parents' house on the hill, hollering at me to come eat dinner. And I was like, man, I just want to dig this one last target before I go up there. And I dug down. I had a good tone. I had the disc on that thing run clear up to like the zinc penny area, just trying to cherry pick good targets. And I had a good repeatable tone. I'm rotating on this thing, and it's coming through on that DeSoro with the whatever it was, 9x8 or whatever it was, concentric coil. And I started digging, and I dug and got that about 7-8 inches down in the woods, so not easy digging through all the roots and stuff, just to find 2 square nails. And I remember being really frustrated that my time spent, which is limited, being a young father at the time, and still is limited to this day, just like everybody. But I remember being so frustrated, just like, man, I'm about done with this crap. I'm sick of digging all these nails. So I went out and I bought a used Technetics T2 that had a handful of coils with it. I think I had a 5-inch round, the 11x7 elliptical, a 10x5 elliptical, and a 13-inch round D-Tech coil is what came with that metal detector. Well, I slapped the 5-inch coil on it, and I went back to the first home site that I ever discovered in an old food plot, disked up field. And I pulled just the first night out with it. I don't know. I remember using Aqua Chigger's settings at the time, hunting in two-tone with that machine, and I just started pulling up all kinds of non-ferrous bits, little bits of copper, brass, lead, little, bullets, little pistol shots, and a couple carbine rounds, and a couple more eagle buttons, and it really opened my eyes having a multi-tone detector. So the Tesoro stayed in the closet for years after that, while I still lived in the Midwest. And I fell into a trap on those forums where I listened to what presumably some old timers were saying about how these detectors were the best in iron and all this. And yes, they will find things. Even a cheap metal detector will find things, but I paid over $400 for that thing, So where's that bring us today? Well, there's a lot of content on YouTube right now, and depends who you watch, that are saying that analog detectors are still basically undefeated in iron unmasking, and I'll just tell you from my experience that that's false. That is false. There's better ways to spend your money, less frustrating ways to learn this hobby, and if you're into finding old relics, just you go ahead and get an analog detector if you really want to. But I'm going to tell you from my experience, you will get frustrated. It's not an easy thing to master, and even when you do master it, you're gonna get fooled by nails. But every detector here has that potential as well. So digging iron, if you're going to be a relic hunter, you're going to have to dig iron, okay? But after I got out of the Technetics stuff, I owned basically a version of everything. I had a Patriot, I had the T2, I had a Goldbug Pro, a G2, I had a Time Ranger Pro from Bounty Hunter. And those all did well with small coils in a home site. But I eventually bought this, which is the XP Deus 1. And when I bought this detector, I knew that I wanted it for a very long time. And I went through some Nocta machines too, some of the older stuff, the original Simplex, a multi-cruiser. What else? I've had an Equinox. And looking back on my experience with the Equinox, I should have been more patient with that detector. That was one of the first newer simultaneous, it was the first probably, newer simultaneous multi-frequency detector, and it was a great machine, but I just couldn't jive with the tones on it. I had watched many people use this detector right here, the Deus 1, and I finally convinced myself just to spend the money on it, and it turned out to be, to this day, my probably most just workhorse of a machine. Very versatile. I never did beach hunt at the time, living up in the Midwest, and did most of my relic hunting here along the Gulf Coast with this machine. A lot of good stuff found in a lot of challenging sites with this detector. But now even this has fallen to the wayside because there is better stuff out there now for much less money. This detector right here is one of those options. So for cheaper than a lot of the analog stuff that's available right now, cheaper than this, which was launched in 2010 or 11, I think, cheaper than this, not much more than this. And if you look at what comes with this machine, you get Bluetooth wireless headphones, a 12 by 9 stock coil, and then you get the little 9.5 by 5 or whatever football elliptical coil. So you get 2 coils, wireless headphones, and a simultaneous multi-frequency waterproof submersible machine with a good number of adjustments for a moderate skill level, I would say. And even for a really experienced guy who's got over a decade of metal detecting under their belt, this is still a capable, good machine. Really deep, separates really well, handles all kinds of terrain. I've used it on the beach and found good amount of targets, silver, gold, you name it, whatever. I've took it into Civil War sites and dug bullets. I got videos of that. I've taken it into colonial iron patches and pulled non-ferrous targets out, and some of them are deep in the iron, in a spot where I have gridded with the Deus 1. So for right at what, $500 now, I think they're going for this kit. Smoking deal. I also have a Deus 2, which is one of my more recent purchases. Got a really good deal on that, and I have the 9-inch coil for it. This metal detector right here is my favorite metal detector I've ever used. Lightweight, hunts literally any terrain on the planet. The audio is absolutely superb, and the feature set is full. It has every feature that you want, or is even probably available for the most part on a metal detector, is on the Deus 2. And even the Deus 1 had a full amount of options as well. It's a selectable single frequency detector. Depending on the coil you have, determines what your frequency ranges are. Still a really good machine. They probably shouldn't be asking what they're asking for them now, because you can get this, which is more of a detector and more of a kit than is even possible to buy with that. You can do like I've done here and do a WS6 Master. Basically what I bought was the WS6 Master upgrade kit to turn my Deus 1 into the Deus 2. So I don't have the full remote like you see some guys using, but in this setup, the WS6 has nearly every feature in it, unlike, you're losing some features if you just run a WS4 without a remote. So I had a Deus Lite too, but I ended up going and getting a WS4 with a remote, and then the 9-inch round HF and the 11-inch X35. So MineLab offers a detector, the Elite, which is close to this, probably neck and neck with this thing actually. And then their equal detector to the Deus 2 would be the Manicore. These are high-end machines. These, they might be frustrating for someone right out of the gate to learn on, but this or its younger brother, the Double Score, or even the Score, that have less features as you go down the line, would be good detectors to start with, and you got the peace of mind of having great performance and capability, great ergonomics and build quality. So I just bought this. It just showed up today. This is a Fisher F75. These came out in 2007. And you might be wondering, dude, Delta Fresh Relics, why on earth would you spend almost $400 on a single frequency 13 kilohertz detector that doesn't even really match in a lot of ways to the Deus 1? Well, it was kind of a nostalgia purchase, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you shouldn't buy an older style detector, because it's, they will still go out and find stuff. For example, like a Technetics G2, very, very, one of the most simple metal detectors. It's the same as a Fisher F19, the same as a Time Ranger, or Time Ranger Pro. Yeah, that's right, Bounty Hunter. So they're all three the same detector. The Goldbug Pro from Fisher is also that same detector, basically. You can go out with those and do just fine. Easy to use, very simple. I bought this for digging deep Civil War bullets in the woods. When I had the T2, that's where it really shined, was relic hunting in the woods where there's not super thick iron. Old battle sites where you're digging bullets that are over a foot deep, because for 30 years people have been metal detecting here, 40 years even, and finding all the easy targets. So that's why I bought this. It was kind of a nostalgia purchase. I just wanted to have one back in my collection. I've never actually had an F75. I had the T2, which is the more relic geared version of an F75. But yeah, I'm looking forward to using this metal detector. Is it even comparable to this? For $100 more with this detector, you get the headphones and an extra coil. With this, you don't get any headphones. You get just this coil. So, no, it's not really comparable. This is a better deal. This is actually probably deeper on a lot of different targets than the F75. I know for a fact it separates in iron a heck of a lot better than the F75. And it's waterproof. I can hunt with it in the rain. And I can swing it all day without tearing my arm up. This though, is a very ergonomic metal detector. These were praised by everyone for how they feel in the hand, and still it holds up really well. It's a stout machine. When it came out, it was probably the top dog metal detector for relic hunting type scenarios. But if you step up your game to the $1,000+ mark, you start getting into these, which this detector is light as a feather. It weighs nothing. And so this detector makes this one, like if you got the money, you might as well go here. You really might as well, because this would last you the duration of your relic hunting. Like you wouldn't have to be thinking, oh, am I missing this? I wish I had this feature, yada, yada, yada. It's not even an issue. It's a non-issue with something like the Deus 2. This is right behind it, though, for less than half the price. So that's just some things to think about. There's a lot of content right now from some very reputable people that I agree with a lot on what they're saying. Sometimes people might get caught in the trap as a beginner and hear from some other folks who aren't giving you proper information, and who knows what the motive is behind that. I really don't understand why, but I'm just going to shoot you straight. You can go out and spend $400 on something that's approaching the 20-year mark in technology, or you can spend $500 and get current, just been updated, handful of updates since release, only been out for a few months, smoking good machine. MindLab has comparable offerings, same price range, same performance. Same thing goes for this. Numerous updates since it was released a couple years ago, and it's one of the best metal detectors in the world. In fact, that and the Manicore probably are the best metal detectors in the world for what you pay and what their capabilities are. So thanks for listening to me talk. That 20 minutes went by incredibly fast. But if you have any questions, just ask in the comments. Like, be careful who you're listening to. Calabash Diggers channel is the place to be for non-biased, straight to the truth information on metal detectors, period. I don't know of another channel that is doing what he's doing. Sharpshooter's another one to watch. TN Sharpshooter. He's got a lot of good tests. He knows his stuff about metal detectors. And just keep in mind that we live, what applies in the UK may not always apply in the United States as far as our conditions and what we're trying to pull out of the dirt. So, thanks for watching, and y'all have a good weekend.